So if you have a Ford Econoline van, you're looking to get rid of the original bumpers for the cool overlanding off-road style bumpers for under 500 bucks, you gotta check out Move Bumpers. But there is a catch.
There's moments like this that I'm gonna miss when I'm dead and gone and I can't kiss my kids. Will they look up to the sky and think about me? These are the ways I've been spending my days, thinking weird thoughts and the things that amaze me about life and the way I've been able to live it so free. It's moments like this that are priceless to me. Yeah, 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 priceless to me. Yeah, yeah.
So with my Move Bumpers build, this is going to be more of a cinematic, talk about a couple key points type video, not so much a how-to or a walkthrough. Move Bumpers has a ton of stuff, and there's a ton of stuff on YouTube on how to build the bumper and put it on. So if you're looking at more of a step-by-step how-to, this video won't be it. It'll just be kind of a lot of clips of me putting it together, and then I'll voice over some points of what I think some of the key selling points of this bumper is. So without further ado, let's get started on this rear bumper. So the catch that I'm talking about is the fact that you do have to build this bumper. It does come as a kit, very well packaged, but you will need a welder or your buddy with a welder. The fact that the kit is so cheap, you can spend a couple extra $100 and get a used welder or a Harbor Freight welder and be all together in with the bumper and a used welder for less than you're going to pay for your standard off-the-shelf or online ordered bumper. So the kit comes very well put together. The instructions are pretty easy to understand, especially for me not having any fabrication skills. Super simple. Here I'm just cleaning up the metal surfaces, giving me something good to weld. I'm not beveling the edges like a lot of the other guys are doing, and it still went together very well. So tacking everything together was pretty straightforward. Everything goes together like a precision cut puzzle. Nothing out of the ordinary. Pieces fit very well together, a couple tacks in each of the corners, and it was pretty much done and tacked up in a very short amount of time. To me, this was the most fun part of the build, being able to see the bumper come together so quickly and kind of get an idea of what the final product is going to look like. So with the main body of the bumper tacked together, it was pretty much time to move on to the van part of it. Basically just removing the back bumper, which is super simple, 4 nuts and bolts, and then the rear backup sensor connector. And that was pretty much it. We went from removing the bumper to installing the bumper brackets to the frame. You have to do it this way just to ensure that everything fits appropriately. I used the stock hardware on the stock bumper to put the brackets on the frame. And you kind of got to like nudge them into place just to make sure they fit perfectly. And then basically from there, you're going to take that bumper piece that we've tacked together and put it on the bumper mounts that we've bolted to the frame. Fit together very well, and then you're basically just tacking those together, knowing, hey, this thing is going to fit on your rear frame rails perfectly. So now that the main part of the bumper is tack welded to the frame mounts, we can continue working on the bumper by adding the tubular sections. This part needs to be done with the bumper mounted to the frame rails because everything's got to align perfectly. Unfortunately, my driveway's at a slope, so I couldn't just stick a level on these. I kind of had to mount them, wiggle them around a little bit, and ensure the lines lined up appropriately. Tack welding these in place was a little tricky as the holes in the bumper were slightly larger than the diameter of the bent tubing, but I made it work and it turned out pretty good in the long run. So with the upper tubing tacked in place, I decided to take the whole rear bumper back off. I just felt like I could get some better tacks if it wasn't on the van. This made life just a little easier, being able to go in there and make sure my tacks were nice and secure. From this point, knowing that those upper bars or upper tubing was nice and level, I was able to install the lower sections of those and just basically guide everything from the upper section. Here it's upside down, but having a good reference already, I knew everything was going to line up. With that lower tubing now tacked in place, I did have to make a little bit of a cut to get this end plate to fit. It wasn't that bad. I just kind of eyeballed it, took a paint pen and drew my lines, then took a simple cut-off wheel on a grinder and cut that small section off. The plate fit pretty well, but I decided to take a flap disc and kind of sand it down a little bit just to make sure that fit was even better. And then it's pretty much just the final weld. This for me was probably the longest, most tedious part, as I am not a welder, so I have a lot to learn as far as technique goes. There's a lot to weld on the back that's difficult to get to. The front's not hard to get to, but there's just a lot of welds that need to be done. So this is by far the most time-consuming part for me. All in all, I think it turned out pretty well as far as my welds are considered. So after the final weld, it's time to mount the bumper and start with this custom ladder that I wanted to build. I wanted to make a ladder that went from the roof rack, but I didn't want it to attach to the van anywhere, so I was going to utilize this bumper as the lower mounting point. From here, I just spent the remainder of the day building the ladder and figuring out how I'm going to mount it to the roof rack, and then how I'm going to mount the lower section to the bumper. Once done, I pretty much just called it a night until the next day. Unfortunately, it decided to rain that night while the ladder and the bumper were on the van. So, being bare metal, there was a little bit of surface rust on both the ladder and the bumper. I had to pull both of those back off the van, bring them inside to dry them off, and then hit them up with a wire wheel. Instead of using a grinder on some of my more unsightly welds, I thought I would try using some of this lightweight body filler that I had laying around. I thought if I just mixed it up and then slowly spread it over some of the not so good looking welds, it would be okay. And for the most part, it did its job, but I think next time I'm just going to leave the welds there. Definitely took the time to use some prep all to make sure the surface was nice and clean and free of any residue. Just wanted to make sure it was super clean so the primer had something good to adhere to. Instead of mixing up some primer for this, I just grabbed a rattle can with some direct to metal etching primer, and it was less than 1 can, easily covered both the bumper and the ladder with multiple coats of primer. I let it dry, and the stuff, it works pretty well for jobs like this. Spraying the Raptor liner is where things kind of went sideways with me. The included Raptor liner gun broke on me right at the last second, so I had to bust out this Harbor Freight HVLP sprayer and figure out how to reduce it and spray it without being able to set up the gun. So this part, it didn't go as well as I wanted, or I wasn't as prepared as I wanted, but it did turn out pretty well. And actually, the texture from an HVLP sprayer turned out really cool. I think I actually like spraying from the HVLP sprayer better than the nozzle that comes with the Raptor liner. I'm definitely going to play with this around and get actual gun settings set up appropriately to get some really good spray patterns. But for the most part, I'm very pleased with spraying from the HVLP, and I think I'll be doing Raptor liner from the HVLP from here on out. Move Bumpers offers this bumper specifically for $495 shipped to your door, and they have a ton of other models out there. It's also made in the US. If you're a veteran like me, they also offer military discounts, so you definitely got to take advantage of that. It definitely saves you a few bucks. And with finally wrapping this up, please give this a like and subscribe, as I got some more videos coming out in the future that I think all you van lifers are really going to dig. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.